The Galactic Horror Registry warned that humans find peace in absolute chaos and death. Part 1. The conference chamber floated in the void between stars, a neutral space where no single species could claim advantage. Ambassador of the Serene Collective stood before the assembled delegates, his four arms trembling slightly as he accessed the ancient database. The holographic display materialized above the circular table, casting blue light across faces that represented 200 different civilizations. "The humans have applied for council membership," began, his voice translator rendering his words in the common tongue. "Protocol requires we consult the horror registry before accepting new species." A ripple of curiosity moved through the chamber. The horror registry was old, older than most of the civilizations present. It had been created by the architects, the first spacefaring species, who had learned through terrible experience that understanding a species' fear response was crucial to peaceful coexistence. The database analyzed psychology, evolutionary history, and neurological patterns to predict how species would react under extreme stress. "The registry has issued a Class 7 warning," continued, "the highest level I have seen in my 3 centuries of service." The delegate, a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses, flickered anxiously. What did it find? Translator hesitated, as if struggling with the translation. "It says that humans find peace in absolute chaos and death." Silence filled the chamber. The ambassador, a being covered in sensory feathers that detected emotional states, ruffled uncomfortably. "Explain." The registry analyzed human neurology and found something unprecedented. When humans encounter danger, their bodies release chemicals called adrenaline and endorphins. These should trigger escape responses. Instead, human brains can rewire these signals into something their language calls a flow state. They become calmer, more focused. They report feeling alive. "That makes no sense," they said. "Fear exists to promote survival through avoidance." "For us, yes," agreed. "But humans evolved differently. Their Earth is classified as a Category 9 death world. Extreme weather, predators that hunted them, diseases that killed without warning, and tectonic activity that reshaped continents. Humans who froze in fear died. Humans who panicked died. Only those who could think clearly during catastrophe survived to reproduce." The holographic display shifted, showing images from human history. Battles where soldiers charged into certain death, rescuers running toward collapsing buildings, doctors working calmly during plagues, sailors singing as their ships sank into frozen oceans. "Their entertainment celebrates disaster," said. "They create fictional scenarios of apocalypse and consume them for pleasure. Their music glorifies struggle. Their literature makes heroes of those who suffered most. They have a saying, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.'" "Madness," they declared. "They sound like the Ravagers." "No," the eldest interrupted. She rarely spoke, this ancient being from a species that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. Her voice carried weight that made everyone listen. "The Ravagers sought destruction. Humans seek meaning through adversity. There is a difference, though I grant it is subtle." "With respect, eldest," they said, "that difference seems academic when dealing with a species that treats mortal peril as recreation." The delegate pulsed urgently. "I must share something. 20 cycles ago, there was an incident at Research Station Gamma, a reactor malfunction. We sent a distress call. The nearest ship was human, a merchant vessel." The display changed to show grainy footage from the station. Smoke-filled corridors, alarms shrieking, and debris floating through breached sections. The scientists huddled in a safe room, paralyzed by fear as their environment collapsed around them. Then humans arrived. The footage showed 6 humans in emergency suits moving through the chaos. What disturbed the delegates most was not their efficiency, though they worked with impressive speed. It was their demeanor. They were joking, laughing. One human pulled a scientist from a collapsed corridor while humming a melody. Another human took a moment to admire the pattern of crystalline fractures spreading across a viewport before it shattered, commenting that it looked beautiful. "They saved all 17 of us," the delegate said. "When I thanked their captain," she said, and I remember her exact words, "No problem. Honestly, it felt good to do something useful." She had just survived explosive decompression, radiation exposure, and multiple near-death experiences. She called it useful. Their stress hormones actually decreased during the rescue, added, displaying biometric data. They were measurably calmer in the disaster than they had been during the flight to reach us. The feathers flattened in distress. This is a species that becomes tranquil during apocalyptic scenarios. How can we share a galaxy with them? What happens when conflict arises? "We have observed their conflicts," said carefully. "Humans can be violent, yes, but they also have concepts they call honor, mercy, and rules of engagement. Even in war, they maintain codes of conduct. They treat wounded enemies. They spare civilians. They weep for those they kill." "They weep but they don't stop killing?" they asked. "They acknowledge the tragedy while accepting the necessity. They hold two contradictory truths simultaneously." The eldest made a gesture that indicated consideration. "The registry warns us, yes, but warnings have multiple purposes. Sometimes they tell us to avoid danger. Sometimes they tell us we have found something precious." "Precious?" The sounded incredulous. "How is a species immune to fear precious?" "They are not immune," the eldest corrected. "The data shows they feel fear as intensely as any species. They simply refuse to let it control them. That is courage, not immunity." She manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up a new file. "There is a situation. Colony Theta 9 in the Outer Reach. A mining operation of the Serene Collective. 3,000 colonists." "I know," it said. "They went silent 2 weeks ago." Not silent, screaming. The distress calls continued for 6 days before stopping. "We sent probes. The colony is infested with void swarmers." A collective shudder ran through the delegates. Void swarmers were not merely dangerous, they were existentially terrifying. The creatures existed partially in normal space and partially in a dimension that intersected with the consciousness of sentient beings. They fed on fear, generating psychic projections drawn from the deepest terrors of their prey. "The colonists are still alive," the eldest continued. "The swarmers keep them alive, feeding on their fear. Every species we have sent to rescue them has retreated. The team became catatonic. The lost cohesion and had to be reconstituted from backup crystals. My own people, who have faced down extinction events, could not approach within a kilometer of the colony." "What are you proposing?" asked, though he suspected he knew. "Send humans." The chamber erupted in protests. There was loudest. "You want to send the chaos-loving species into a situation designed to induce maximum psychological trauma. What if they cannot handle it? What if it breaks them?" "What if it doesn't?" the eldest replied. "What if a species that finds peace in chaos can walk through manufactured fear and emerge intact? We lose nothing by asking. If they refuse or fail, we are no worse than before. If they succeed, we learn something valuable about our new neighbors." "And if they succeed but enjoy it too much?" the demanded. "If they discover they like fighting swarmers?" "Then we will have learned that too," the eldest said. "Better to know now than discover it during a crisis." Looked at the data again, at the footage of humans laughing in disaster zones, of their stress hormones dropping during emergencies, of their strange ability to find meaning in suffering. The horror registry had warned them, yes, but perhaps the eldest was right. Perhaps the warning was not to stay away from humans, but to understand what they represented. "I will contact the human diplomatic mission," said finally. "I will present the situation and ask for volunteers." "They will volunteer," the eldest said with certainty. "I have studied their history. When called to walk into darkness to save strangers, humans have never said no." The vote was called. Despite reservations, the Council authorized the mission by a narrow margin. As the delegates departed, the paused near. "Do you think they can do it?" the crystalline being asked. Watched the human footage loop again, those strange creatures smiling in the face of death. "I think if any species in the galaxy can save those colonists, it is the one that treats horror as an interesting challenge. Whether that makes me hopeful or terrified, I honestly cannot say." Part 2. Captain Sarah stood in the briefing room of the UNSC Defiant, studying the holographic display with professional interest. Around her, 11 other Marines waited in silence, their expressions ranging from curiosity to grim determination. They had all volunteered for this mission after hearing the basics. Strange alien creatures, a rescue operation, and the Galactic Council's uncertainty about whether humans could handle it. The serene collective liaison officer stood off to the side. His 4 arms moved nervously as he prepared to deliver the full briefing. Sarah noticed he kept glancing at them, his translator picking up emotional stress markers. He was afraid for them. That was sweet, in a way. "Thank you for accepting this mission," began. "I must be completely honest with you about what you will face. We are sending you to rescue 3,000 colonists from Theta 9. The colony has been overrun by creatures we call void swarmers." The holographic display shifted, showing vaguely shapes that seemed to blur at the edges, as if reality couldn't quite contain them. They were roughly human-sized, with too many limbs and sensory organs that easy categorization. "The swarmers exist partially in our dimension and partially in what we call null space, a realm that intersects with consciousness itself. They are psychic predators. When you encounter them, they will reach into your mind and manifest your deepest fears as hallucinations indistinguishable from reality." Corporal James raised his hand. "So, like, they make you see scary things." "More than see. You will hear, feel, smell, and experience manifestations drawn from your memories and fears. Previous rescue attempts resulted in complete psychological collapse within minutes of exposure. The team experienced catatonic fear states. They literally fell apart at the molecular level from psychic shock. My own species, despite millions of years of evolution, could not approach the colony." "But you think we can?" Sergeant Maria asked. There was no challenge in her voice, just genuine curiosity. His translator clicked uncertainly before he answered. "The horror registry suggests that humans process fear differently than other species. We are hoping that difference will allow you to function where others could not. However, I must stress that we do not know if this will work. You may experience the same psychological collapse." "Or worse," added Doctor, the team's combat psychologist. She was reviewing the data on her tablet. "This is fascinating. The swarmers target specific neural pathways associated with fear response. In most species, that triggers immediate fight-or-flight responses that override higher reasoning. But human neurology has something unique. We can suppress those responses consciously. Our prefrontal cortex can literally tell our amygdala to shut up and let us work." "Is that going to be enough?" asked. Shrugged honestly. "No idea. This will be an excellent case study either way." Private First Class David, no relation to the captain, laughed. "Doc, you make it sound like we're going to a theme park." "Aren't we?" replied with a slight smile. "Extreme experience, adrenaline rush, confronting our fears. Just replace roller coasters with psychic horrors from beyond space-time." His translator made a sound that might have been distress. Sarah stepped in before the alien could worry too much. "We understand the risks," she said firmly, "and we accept them. Those colonists have been trapped for weeks in a living nightmare. If there's even a chance we can get them out, we have to try." "But why?" asked. The question seemed to burst from him involuntarily. "You do not know these people. They are not even your species. Why would you voluntarily walk into something that has broken every trained team we sent?" Sarah considered the question. Why did humans do this? Why did firefighters run into burning buildings? Why did rescue divers go into collapsed mines? Why did doctors volunteer for plague zones? Because someone has to, she said simply. Because they're suffering and we might be able to help. That's enough. Translator was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that the cultural database identified as respect mixed with incomprehension. The Defiant made the jump to Theta 9. As they approached the planet, Sarah reviewed her team, checked his weapon for the fourth time, a nervous habit that steadied him, was meditating, her breathing deep and regular, was taking notes, already planning her research paper. PFC was humming quietly, some old Earth song his grandmother taught him. They were afraid. Sarah could see it in the slight tension around eyes, the way hands moved to check gear one more time. But they were also calm, ready. This was what they trained for, what they chose. Fear was just another factor to account for, like gravity or ammunition count. They descended through Theta 9's atmosphere. The colony appeared on their screens, a collection of habitat domes connected by enclosed walkways. It looked ordinary, peaceful even, except for the black shapes moving between the buildings, their forms shifting and uncertain. Landing in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Biometric monitoring is active. Council observers are watching your vital signs. Sarah knew what that meant. From a dozen species were tracking their every heartbeat, looking for the moment when humans would break like everyone else. The touchdown. Sarah stood and checked her helmet seals. Around her, the team did the same. Weapons were charged, medical supplies distributed, emergency extraction protocols reviewed. Remember, Sarah said, the colonists are counting on us. Whatever we see, whatever the swarmers show us, it's not real. Trust your training, trust each other. And if we can't tell what's real, asked. Then we make our best guess and keep moving forward, Sarah replied. Ready. A chorus of affirmatives answered her. Sarah opened the door and stepped out onto Theta 9. The psychic assault hit them immediately. It felt like walking into a wall of cold water, except the water was made of wrongness. Sarah's vision doubled, then tripled. The colony around her flickered, showing her different versions of reality layered over each other. In one version, the buildings were burning. In another, they were already ruins. In a third, they were never built at all. Her headset crackled with voices. Her mother, who had been dead for 10 years, calling her name. Her father, disappointed in her life choices. Children screaming. The sound of her own voice begging for mercy. Sarah's heart rate spiked. The fear was real, primal, threatening to overwhelm her conscious mind. For a moment, she understood why other species collapsed. This was not a thing that could be fought with weapons or reasoned with through logic. Then's voice cut through the noise. Captain, I'm seeing my daughter, but the swarmer got her laugh wrong. She snorts when she really laughs, and this version doesn't. The observation was so mundane, so perfectly, that it cut through Sarah's panic. She focused on his words. The swarmers were pulling from memories, but memories were imperfect. They could be analyzed, questioned, resisted. Good catch, she said, and her voice was steady. Everyone sound off. What are you seeing? My grandmother's funeral, PFC reported. Except she's wearing the wrong dress. She was buried in blue, not black. The Tokyo earthquake, said, her tone clinically curious. But the entity added bioluminescent elements to the falling debris. Artistic license, I suppose. Dead comrades from the Mars Rebellion, said quietly. But their uniforms are wrong. We didn't have those patches until after the battle. One by one, the team called out their visions, and in describing them, they robbed the hallucinations of power. The swarmers were good, Sarah realized, but they weren't perfect. They pulled from fear and memory, but they couldn't replicate every detail. And humans, traumatized, pattern-seeking humans, noticed those details. All right, Sarah said. We move forward. The colonists are in the central habitat dome. Whatever we see, we keep moving. These things want us scared, so let's disappoint them. They advanced into the colony. The swarmers moved around them, and with each step, the psychic assault intensified. Sarah saw her entire platoon die a dozen different ways. She felt herself drowning, burning, suffocating. She experienced her own death over and over. But she kept walking. Because behind the fear, behind the hallucinations and the psychic screaming, there was something the swarmers didn't understand about humans. They had learned to find peace not by avoiding chaos, but by moving through it. They had learned that fear acknowledged was fear reduced. They had learned that meaning could be found in the worst moments, that connection with others could survive any horror. "Hey, Captain," called out. "I'm rating this manifestation a 6 out of 10. The emotional impact is solid, but the execution lacks creativity." 5 out of 10 for mine, PFC added. "Too much reliance on jump scares, not enough sustained dread." They were joking. In the middle of a psychic assault designed to break minds, they were rating their nightmares like movie critics. Sarah couldn't help it. She laughed. And ahead, through the swirling chaos, she could see the central dome where 3,000 terrified colonists waited for a rescue they had stopped believing would come. Part 3. The central habitat dome loomed before them, its transparent aluminum walls now opaque with a dark substance that pulsed like diseased tissue. The void swarmers clustered thickest here, their forms overlapping and shifting in ways that hurt to observe directly. Sarah's helmet display showed biometric warnings for her entire team, stress markers climbing, but everyone was still functional, still moving. "We're reading your vitals," his voice crackled through the comm. He sounded shocked. "Your stress hormones are declining. How is that possible?" "Adaptation," replied, her voice carrying that clinical interest that meant she was processing trauma by intellectualizing it. "The swarmers hit us with maximum intensity immediately. Classic predator behavior, trying to overwhelm prey before they can respond. But humans habituate to sustained threats. The longer we're exposed, the more our brains categorize this as our new normal." "That should not work against psychic assault," said. "And yet," said cheerfully. Sarah reached the dome's entrance. The door had been sealed from the inside, a desperate attempt by the colonists to protect themselves. She could hear them inside, a sound like wind through a canyon, which her cultural database identified as the serene collective's expression of absolute despair. "Get this door open. Defensive perimeter. Everyone else, prepare for immediate extraction protocols once we're inside." As her team worked, Sarah became aware of something watching her. Not through the swarmers, but something deeper. An intelligence behind the assault, studying them with the same clinical interest showed toward the swarmers. A voice that wasn't a voice echoed in her mind. It spoke without words, communicating through emotion and image. Confusion. These prey things were not behaving correctly. They should be broken. They should be feeding the swarm with their terror. Instead, they were laughing. Sarah realized the swarmers didn't understand humor as a coping mechanism. They didn't understand the human ability to find absurdity in horror. To them, fear was absolute. You felt it or you didn't. The concept of feeling fear and choosing to act anyway was incomprehensible. "We're through," announced. The door slid open, and the smell of the colony hit them. 3,000 beings had been trapped in here for weeks, too terrified to maintain basic facilities. The serene collective were creatures of order and calm. This chaos had broken something fundamental in them. The colonists were huddled in the center of the dome, pressed together in a mass of bodies. Their eyes, all 6 per individual, were glazed and staring at nothing. Some rocked back and forth. Others made that wind-through canyon sound continuously. A few had stopped moving entirely, and Sarah wasn't sure if they were alive or dead. "Medical teams first," she ordered. "Start triage. Find anyone mobile enough to walk on their own. We'll need to carry the rest." Her team moved with practiced efficiency, spreading through the dome. Sarah activated her translation software and knelt beside the nearest colonist. a being whose designation translated roughly as worker supervisor of the third shift. "We're here to help," Sarah said gently. "We're going to get you out of here." The colonist's eyes focused on her with difficulty. "Human," it whispered, the word barely coherent. "The registry warned of humans, dangerous, chaotic." "Yeah, well, the chaos makes us good at this," Sarah replied. She carefully helped the colonist to its feet. "Can you walk?" "The fear, the images, they do not stop." "I know, we see them too, but they're just images. They can't actually hurt you. Look at me. Focus on my voice. One step at a time." She guided the colonist toward the exit, where had established a secure corridor. Other Marines were doing the same, each one partnered with a colonist, murmuring encouragement, providing something real and solid to focus on besides the psychic assault. The swarmers noticed the extraction and intensified their attack. The hallucinations became more personal, more vicious. Sarah saw her team members dying one by one, saw the colonists torn apart, saw the mission failing in a dozen horrific ways. "Current nightmare rating, 8 out of 10, PFC announced calmly. "Finally getting creative. Really pulled out some deep childhood trauma this time. Nice work, space bugs." 7 out of 10, countered. "Points for effort, but the emotional packing is off. You can't go straight to cosmic horror without building tension first." "Will you two shut up and move?" snapped, but there was affection in her voice. The banter was helping. It reminded them that they were human, that they were together, that this was just another mission in a lifetime of missions. They made 3 trips total, ferrying colonists from the dome to the. Each trip took them through the thickest concentration of swarmers, through layers of psychic assault that would have destroyed most species. By the 3rd trip, Sarah's team was moving with the efficiency of long practice, their fear response so habituated that it barely registered. On the final extraction run, Sarah paused to do a sweep of the dome, making sure no one was left behind. In the far corner, she found a colonist who had separated from the group. This one was different. Its body language suggested awareness rather than catatonia. "Why are you not afraid?" the colonist asked in clear English, having accessed the translation matrix. "I am afraid," Sarah replied honestly. "I'm terrified. I'm seeing things that will probably give me nightmares for years, but fear is just information. It tells me this is dangerous. It doesn't tell me what to do about it. We cannot process this concept. Fear is paralysis. Fear is the end of choice." Sarah knelt down to the colonist's level. "For you, maybe. For us, fear is the beginning. It's the point where we decide what matters. You know what I'm most afraid of right now? Leaving you behind. That fear is making me very motivated to get you on that." She extended her hand. The colonist stared at it for a long moment, then reached out with one of its 4 arms and let Sarah pull it upright. As they walked toward the exit, the swarmer intelligence touched Sarah's mind again. This time, the emotion was different. Not confusion, but something like recognition. These prey things were teaching it something. Fear could be a choice. Terror could be endured. Suffering could have meaning. The swarmers parted before them, not retreating exactly, but acknowledging. They had fed well on the Serene Collective's absolute terror, but humans offered something different, something they couldn't properly digest. Fear that coexisted with purpose. Horror that was acknowledged and then set aside. Chaos that somehow contained its own order. The last colonist was loaded onto the. Sarah did a final. All 3,000 accounted for. Her team was battered, exhausted, and would definitely need psychological support when they got home, but everyone was alive and functional. "Defiant, we have the package. All colonists extracted, ready for pickup." "Acknowledged," the pilot replied. "Captain, I'm showing that your team's stress levels are still below your baseline readings from before the mission." "Is that a problem?" "No, ma'am, it's just unprecedented. The council observers are very confused." Sarah smiled inside her helmet. "Good, keep them guessing." The trip back to council space took 3 days. In that time, Sarah filed her report, debriefed her team, and spent hours talking with the serene collective colonists who were slowly recovering from their ordeal. They asked her the same question repeatedly. How did humans walk through that nightmare? She tried to explain. Humans were born on a world that tried to kill them daily. They evolved humor as a survival mechanism. They developed the ability to find meaning in suffering because suffering was inevitable. They learned to choose action over paralysis because freezing meant death. We're not immune to fear, she told one group of colonists. We're just stubborn. We decided a long time ago that being afraid wasn't a good enough reason to stop trying. The Galactic Council convened again to hear Sarah's report. She stood before the assembled delegates, still wearing her uniform, and delivered her findings with military precision. The mission was a success. All colonists recovered. Human casualties were zero. Psychological impact was significant but manageable. Rose to speak. Captain, on behalf of the Serene Collective and the entire Council, I thank you and your team. You have accomplished something we thought impossible. You have proven that the horror registry was correct about humanity, though perhaps not in the way we expected. The delegate, still ruffled and uncertain, spoke up. Captain, do you understand what you have done? You have shown the galaxy that there is a species immune to one of our greatest fears. You have made humanity both valuable and terrifying. We're not immune, Sarah corrected gently. We're adaptable, there's a difference. Is there? They asked. Your stress levels decreased while facing psychic horrors that have broken civilizations. You laughed. You made jokes. You treated cosmic terror as an interesting challenge. Sarah thought about her team, about raiding his nightmares, about PFC humming in the face of death, about clinical fascination with things that should have broken her mind. Yes, she said firmly, we laughed because laughing helps. We made jokes because humor reminds us we're human. We stayed calm because panic would have gotten those colonists killed. Every choice we made was deliberate, purchased with fear we felt but refused to obey. That's not immunity. That's discipline. The eldest stirred, her ancient eyes fixing on Sarah. The horror registry warned us that humans find peace in absolute chaos and death. We thought it meant you were dangerous. Perhaps it means something else. What's that? Sarah asked. That you have learned something the rest of us have not. That peace is not the absence of chaos, but the choice to act meaningfully within it. That death is not the ultimate horror, but rather the ultimate context that makes life precious. You do not avoid darkness. You carry light into it. The chamber was silent. Then the eldest stood, a gesture that prompted every other delegate to rise in respect. The council votes to grant humanity full membership, the eldest announced. Furthermore, we create a new designation, Wardens of the Dark Frontier. Humanity will be called upon when we face horrors we cannot overcome alone. This is both honor and burden. Do you accept? Sarah thought about her team, about all the humans who ran toward danger instead of away from it. She thought about firefighters and doctors and rescue workers, and all the ordinary people who chose to help when helping was hard. We accept, she said. When you need someone to walk into the dark, humans will answer. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. The council session ended. As delegates departed, approached Sarah privately. The colonists you rescued are asking to meet your team. They want to understand how you endured what they could not. Set it up, Sarah agreed, and thank you for trusting us with this. I was terrified I was sending you to your deaths, he admitted. I still do not fully understand how you survived. Sarah smiled. You know what the funny thing is? We were terrified too. We just decided that saving those people was more important than being comfortable. Sometimes that's all courage is, being scared and doing the thing anyway. She left the council chamber and rejoined her team. They were swapping stories, already turning the mission into legend, was describing his nightmare ratings in elaborate detail, was planning her research paper, was meditating. PFC was humming that same old song. They had walked through a psychic hell dimension and emerged intact. They had proven humanity's place in the galaxy. They had saved 3,000 lives. And tomorrow, when the call came again, when someone needed people willing to walk into chaos and death, they would answer. Because that was the gift humanity offered to a galaxy that found peace and order. The knowledge that even in the deepest darkness, even in absolute chaos, even facing death itself, there could be meaning, there could be purpose, and there could be hope. That was the real warning in the horror registry. Not that humans were dangerous, but that they were dangerous to despair itself. They were the species that found peace not by avoiding horror, but by walking through it carrying each other. And that, in a universe full of darkness, was the most powerful thing of all.